Hey, everybody, and welcome to the Live Wholism podcast. I'm your host, Lucy.
And I'm Ryan.
And we're going to start this out with the Serenity Prayer. Higher power, grant us the serenity to accept the things we cannot change, the courage to change the things we can, and the wisdom to know the difference.
Boom.
Woohoo! All right, back for another exciting week.
Boom.
And if you guys want to send us any questions or comments, you can do so on the platform that you're watching this from, or on Instagram at livewholism, or email us at thelivewholismpodcast@gmail.com. All right, we're going to get into the nitty-gritty of how we've been staying whole and nourished and aligned physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually, getting us into a topic that the other person is not aware of.
Boom.
Are you ready?
Yes.
What you've been doing physically?
Okay, so physically was like a really fun week this week. Two things kind of happened. I didn't mean to do it, but I was like at the gym and I was like, man, I wonder how much I weigh now. Like I kind of just went to go check and I was like, oh shit. Like I'm kind of down to like the weight that I was trying to get at as far as like my good playing weight. And I was like, started like kind of connecting. And I was like, oh shit. Like I have been feeling lighter. I've been feeling faster, quicker. Like my knee hasn't been hurting as much. And I started thinking about it, I was like, oh, like when I'm playing like tennis or anything like that, like I'm just feeling like, golly, like I could do this for days. Like it's kind of crazy. I've been eating, like I was like, oh shit, like what's kind of going on? Like what have I been changing? Most of it has been my eating, my hunger cues, like actually eating
more. It's so funny that it got you to this place, right?
I'm like, what? Because I did not expect. I was like, man, like I did not expect that scale to say that. And I was like, damn, that is really freaking cool. So that was, even today, I think I was even a little bit lighter. I was like, man, like this is, with my shoes on, I was like 215, which is the lightest I've been in a while. So I was like, man, that's kind of cool. So, but
cool validation of everything you've been doing.
Yeah, I think it really was. It kind of felt really, really good about that. One thing though, this week that did happen, huge week. So I had a tennis tournament this weekend. So Saturday, the people didn't show up. Me and my partner, she doesn't show it, but I was like, man, I'm kind of annoyed about that. I had showed up early. I had got up early, went to go warm up, rolled myself out, did everything good just to get there, and they didn't show up. And I was like, well, this is fucking stupid. So me and my partner just ended up playing inside their indoor courts for we were just playing each other. And I ain't gonna lie to you, like, I love playing against and practicing, but every now and then I'm just like, I want to play against people I don't know. Because we know each other so well, and which is a good thing because it forces me to be a whole lot more strategic as far as what I'm doing, because I know that she can run and get balls and she can get them over, and that's annoying at times. and like she knows how I play, so I have to be a little bit more different. But that game, me and her, we ended up getting pretty intense between the two of us, where it was just like, all right, like we really out here like balling. And like she was laughing and was like, man, we are so good. And I was like, yeah, I feel like we really have like been getting there. And I would imagine it's been helping, because when I serve, my serves lately have just been like on fucking point. Like my coach, when I first started working with him, he was shocked that I was winning games, because he was like, well, you must just be crushing it with serves. And I was like, bro, them shits, that's the worst part of my game. And he just started laughing. He was like, you gotta be freaking kidding me. And then he saw me serve and he was like, you weren't lying. And I was like, that's one thing I'm not. Like, I can tell you what I do and don't do. And he was like, Ryan, like your serves are going to be, he's like, I'm going to get you to where like, this is about to be the strongest thing in your game. He was like, I can't even believe that you've been doing that. And like, now I'm like, oh shit, like it's really there. So me and her were playing. I imagine her playing against my serves probably help her out, because they're coming fast and there's a bunch of different ones, and she does a great job returning them. And so I'm just like, all right, like this keeps me on my toes. So that was how Saturday went. Sunday comes and we're playing. Now the way like most tennis, none of their numbers make sense. And so their rankings go like, it's just really
True.
yeah, they decide to do their own thing. And so like their rankings go like, if you're a beginner, meaning like you can get it over the net and like, you know, you can somewhat hit the ball over, you don't really have any consistency, like you're rated at 2.5. If you're
Sorry, it's so arbitrary.
I'm like, what's happening? How and where and why? So yeah, like I said,
2.5.
you're 2.5.
Obviously.
There, clearly you're a 2.5. All right, you know, and like they're like, you can serve it in the box. All right, so then 3.0 is like you can serve it. You're a little bit more consistent. 3.5, you're like, all right, like you're kind of starting to get there. You probably got a few other serves. And then it goes to 4.0 and then 4.5. And I think 5.0 was like you're like Division 1 player, and then like 6.0 was like the pros. So I'm like, all right, you know, cool. So we are technically like ranked as 2.5 players, but
Ouch. I thought you were going to say like 4. I was not prepared for that. I mean, that giant 1.5 difference. Oh.
it's a really big jump though. It's wild how much better. Yeah,
Right.
it's huge.
Yeah.
And so like officially ranked that, but like we played against other ones who are that ranked and we're just like, all right, we're beating the shit out of them. So whenever you're getting ready to cross over to the next one, like there's like even ranges within the levels, like beginner 2.5 versus you about to cross over 2.5. People will look at you like, who the hell, why are you here? And so anyway, so we're still kind of ranked that. So we see these two people we're playing on Sunday and they're 3.5 and 3.0. The guy is 3.5 and the girl is 3.0. And I was like, what the hell are they playing against us for? I don't want to do that. Like, so I was like, all right, you know, I'm feeling a little bit more confident about myself though. Cause I'm just like, let me tell you something that I do know. Like I probably serve close to like a 3.5 or 4.0.
Wow.
Like as far as like, I'm not putting a lot of power into it, but I think just naturally because I'm strong, my motion, it just comes fast. So I kind of so like one of the things that me and my partner were talking about is like finding a way to stay focused throughout the entire game. Sometimes we'll start winning or something will happen and we just get unfocused and then we're just going to lollygagging around. So we came in there focused. I was like, yo, 3.5. All right, let's see what the freak we got. And so we come in there and we like jump up and beat them. And we're like winning. We like won 3 straight games on them right away. And I was like, well, what the fuck just happened there? Then it was coming to be my serve. And I'm not gonna lie to you. Like I served it to the guy who is like just a big ranking according to his thing, bigger than me. And he couldn't do anything with it. Like he could barely, like we were just, I mean, like it was just a dominant performance. And I served it against the girl and she kind of like somewhat yelped. And I was like, yo, and I was like, yo, you okay? And she was just like, yeah. And I was like, oh, it just came that fast. She couldn't react to it.
Wow.
And I was like, and it was so cool because like, usually when people serve it like that, they usually get it in like once every like 15 times. So you can play. So it's just like, yeah, this is just a lucky time this time. But with me, that ain't it. Like I'm actually consistent now and I got a few different ones I can throw at you. And I'm training now to where I'm like actually aiming them. Like, so when I serve it, like if you're lined up all the way to like the right, I'll serve it to the left and I can throw it.
Wow.
So I'm like really practicing that a lot. So we end up beating them. They didn't win a single game against us that first set. And here's where my physical really came in at, where it was starting to help me out mentally. Within that, by that third game, me and my partner started noticing those other two started fussing with each other.
Oh boy.
And here is where I normally start to take something off. And make sure they're okay. Oh, this is my fault. And I all of a sudden start playing a little bit more. And I realize what I do is I start to play more casually. I'll start to have just casual conversation, which makes me not take things more serious, which is just a way to which I start to sabotage myself. And I was like, okay, I don't want to do that this time. This is something me and my partner know we do all the time we do all the time. And so like throughout the whole entire time, I was just like listening to them fuss, and I was like, okay, that ain't nothing to do with me. Like, whatever. So I to notice, but it was really hard to like stick in that. And one of the things I had to do was like, I could not talk even barely to my partner, so that I wouldn't start to make things more casual, so it would take me out of the moment and make me not focus as hard. So one of the things I all of a sudden started like finding myself starting to picture in my head as I'm playing is I just started picturing Kobe Bryant and LeBron James. That's all I kept inside of my head. And for a little bit, I was like, why the hell does that keep popping up? And I started thinking, and I started saying this to myself, Ryan, it's okay to be dominant. Wow. It's okay to dominate. It's okay to be great.
Wow.
You've worked really hard. It's okay to be good. And this is how it shows. It's okay. I don't have to dumb this down. And I had to keep repeating that to myself over and over and over and over, because if not, my serves would have came out. I wouldn't have been doing these different things. I mean, I was just looking like I play, so I know I'm athletic too. So they were trying to hit it a few certain ways. I've just been working really hard. I'm just like, nothing you really throw at me is going to be super overwhelming. My coach has really been teaching me the fundamentals. And one of the things I've really was working on was when I get kind of overwhelmed, not using my athleticism, and instead like using my technique to make sure I kind of keep it together. And I was doing it the whole entire time. There were a few times they hit a few balls, and they were just like shocked that I could run and get it. And I was like, yep. And I can aim it where I want to hit the ball too. Like I'm not your regular person. And I had to keep repeating this to myself. It's okay to be dominant. It's okay to dominate. It's okay. It's okay. It's okay. It's okay. And I was talking to a friend of mine about this afterwards, and it was kind of like, wow. So I kind of wrote this down. And I was telling her, I don't think I had ever realized myself saying this. And I ended up getting to this point where I was just like, I'm so used to being the underdog, and I actually fight better being the underdog. I don't know what it's like. I told her, this is exactly what I quoted. I wrote it down as soon as I said it. I don't know how to fight with my head above water. I don't know how to motivate myself when I'm good and not drowning.
Damn.
Yo.
Wow. Wow.
So that was like something that really came out of that on Sunday. Is just like, okay, I'm starting to feel and get better. I know how to fight as the underdog. How do I fight when I'm starting to feel, when I'm actually good and feeling better? So that was like a huge, huge thing for me physically this week, which is don't start sabotaging myself. It's okay to be great. It's okay to dominate. And I don't have to hide my light anymore, because that's what I've been doing since I was a kid. I know where it came from so much. I used to do it. Someone asked me, they were like, I mean, Ryan, like, did you do it in football? Yes, all the time. I was telling them, yo, if I saw somebody that I knew was shorter than me or less athletic, I didn't want them to feel bad. So I'm not going to go super hard, because I want you to feel like you can still do this. Something that comes from childhood, how I had to kind of help my brother out with that stuff. My parents kind of put that on me. So it was just an interesting thing of, I'm not going to do that this time. And then we beat the shit out of him again. And so I was just like, whew, this is uncomfortable. This is uncomfortable. So yeah, that was my physical this week.
Wow. I mean, it's a powerful message. It's almost like you've moved from surviving to thriving. And so just like a shift of energy, and what do you do? And it's almost like when you start thriving, it's like, uh-oh, this doesn't feel right. Let me go back to surviving. Yep. That felt a lot more normal. And so it's cool that you took that moment of awareness to be like, no, this is a good place. It's good to be swimming and not drowning. It's good to be floating even sometimes above the water. Like, but it's intense if you aren't used to that. It really is.
It's how I've motivated myself to make sure that, you know, it's how I've motivated myself. So I was very just kind of excited to be able to, you know what I'm saying, find a way to get myself to be able to, oh God, I'm not answering that. And so I was excited to be able to find a way to get myself motivated to be able to move forward with that and like not be ashamed of that. So, yeah.
And how long have you been working with that coach? I mean, I've seen your whole tennis journey. What, like 4 years almost?
2.
But like since you and I started even playing.
2.
Okay, damn it. No, that was definitely at least 3 years ago that you and I were out on that tennis court. It was 2 falls ago. Okay. Well, you've been working really diligently for 2 years, so diligently that I thought it was 4 years. Okay. But I mean, you really, even if it was just 2, no, even since it was just 2 years, you've been putting in the dedication, you've been working with the coach, you've been playing with your team, you've been doing all of those things, and to have it culminate, it's a really powerful moment. To
see it, and like the amount of times I wanted to quit and just be like, oh, it's something, it just started clicking. And I want to show, that's why I wanted to play against somebody else. And like, I was just like, oh, so this is what it's like when I actually have some level of control again in my life. So what do I do with that? Like, before I was just always on defense when playing, like never really knowing. I'm like, oh, like I'm a little bit more in it. So I was very kind of excited about that. So yeah, just what a day.
That's cool.
It was a cool day.
It's new.
It's new. Loved it. What about you though?
I have been doing a bit of an old with a new. Okay, so my physical journey has been refocusing on essentially posture, I've been calling it, but my back body. I have realized as I have been incorporating that and sharing about it, it's just changing everything. And I got to a place where it's all coming together, I guess is the way to put it. And so one way that I've found for it all to come together is I will go and stand with my back against the wall, and I'm like envisioning I'm doing it now. I can even do it against the couch, and I will push back against it so that my shoulders are engaged, my traps are engaged. Well, let me start from the top of the head. My top of my crown is like back and engaged, like pushing against the wall. My neck is pushing back. My shoulders are pushing back. My traps are pushing back. My lower back is pushing back. My glutes are pushing back. My hamstrings are pushing back. My calves are pushing back. And my heels are steady and solid and being like holding more of the weight. And it's been really cool for me to, like, those are all a lot of different things to engage. And I've shared kind of my journey with like discovering each one of them. So it's cool to have them all together. And then what's bringing it home is zip up my inner thighs. And then it just stays like that. Do you like, you can feel it, right? So like when all those things are engaged and then you add zipping up so like basically I started engaging my inner thighs as much as I could, like literally just flexing them is a good way to, I'm like, how else would I praise zipping up if I'd never heard that? You know, like how do I help? So it's like contracting my inner thighs and then walking around like that.
Or
and
pushing your thighs, act like you're pushing your inner thighs together.
There we go. I like it. Yes. So doing that with my back engaged, it's allowing it to maintain. And I'm realizing that zipping up the inner thighs is the opposite of that was what was leading to so much of my leg problems with my IT bands and my shins. Like that's all in the outer legs. So it's been huge to have it culminate, to push to be able to get all those things active when I'm standing against the wall, and then to leave the wall and they actually stay active.
And actually, yeah.
As long as my inner thighs are engaged, really is like the clutch part. But it's kind of wild. I mean, sometimes I will really just practice like that because at first I realized the moment I moved away from the wall, it all like fell apart. Mm-hmm. And I was like, okay, if you can just hold this. Like, it's cool to find out, even if it's just for 1 second, the optimal of whatever it is that you want, and then keep strengthening yourself to be able to maintain it.
You know, it's like, that's something like we will do sometimes in like my yoga class is we don't like to get the shape of what I'm trying to get to. Sometimes we have to like give ourselves like some kind of like yoga block. Like sometimes we'll do like crossing the legs or like having the feet together and let your knees kind of like drop out. Now, here's the thing. My left leg is some shit. Like it is nowhere near as flexible or as yada yada as my right leg. So when it starts to kind of drop down, sometimes it can kind of hurt. But she was saying like, yo, it's okay to put a yoga block under there and let your body kind of like relax into it, as opposed to me just being like, well, I just can't go down that far. And so like, and sometimes like we'll have like small things that like we'll put our arms up against, and she's just like, look, I don't care if you can like do this tree pose without your hand on the freaking banister or not, but like put your hand on it first, because I want you to more focus on doing that right first, and then you'll be able to like naturally, as you're starting to strengthen those muscles back, you'll be able to kind of like not use this nearly as much.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. It's been huge.
Yeah. And it's wild because before I just thought like the equivalent of what you said there, like, oh, I just don't do this or whatever. But no, it's like you do it and then you just keep working towards it and you keep working towards it. And before I just thought, if I can't do it, then fuck it.
Yeah, fuck
I'm not supposed to do it, and it's all awful.
Yeah, and like, and this is just the hand I was dealt.
Yeah,
get over it. But
then what would happen is I would remember there was a long period of my life when I could do this, right? Mm-hmm. And that helped motivate me. Like, there's got to be a way. Then, if it happened, I can do it again.
Yeah, right. Because I struggle with like sitting and like having like my pelvis pressed forward, where like I'm not like kind of bending over, where it's kind of like tucked in. And I struggle doing it without having a wall to sit against. And so I feel myself sometimes as a weak person for doing that, but I'm just like, all right, here's what I'm going to keep putting inside of my head. I'm going to take those critical thoughts out and I'm going to just replace them with Steph's yoga teacher voice, because I'm not going to say it to myself. And I'll do that now. Like, I'll sit against the wall to kind of like get myself a little bit better. Like, and I can't say I'm 1000% there, but I am slowly kind of being like, all right, like I'm at least now aware of when I haven't like my pelvis tucked in, like my spine is rounded at my lower back, as opposed to like it kind of like my lower back kind of I can't think of any other word than tucked in. That's all the words we use. So
no, exactly, and I resonate so much with that. That's like the journey, or maybe similar, that I used to describe, where I would lean over my computer and let my lower abdomens disengage, which leads to that curving of the, so yeah. Mm-hmm. I also secretly love that we are both standing against walls at periods in our time of our lives, apparently. Or you're sitting against one, I'm standing against one. So, and we've never discussed this before in this moment. So I kind of love that.
It is something I am very intentional with. I'm just like, I'm going to just sit against this wall because I want to practice that so I can get that right. So I can walk away from it and hopefully it'll stay that shape. So
physical tip for the week is walls.
Walls. There we go. Do that.
Okay, so what have you been up to mentally, emotionally?
All right, so this week I was just like, okay, I'm really going to, buckle down, and I'm like, I'm less than 10 pages from finishing this freaking book, so I can start to put it into the manuscript. Like
the edits, right?
Yeah, like the what's his faces of them, and I'm just like, fuck, like this is where again that end. Like, I struggle with endings, so I'm just like, all right, got to like I got to go back and look at this again. Go look at it, Ryan. I know that once I see it, it won't be that bad. And one of the things I'm really mentally having to focus on is knowing that I struggle with this ending and actually taking my time instead of like rushing through to just finish it. And that's kind of like where I always struggle. And so so this week, like straight up, like I was just like, all right, God, like if I only get through with one page, like just let it kind of like be whatever it be. Now, my problem is that when I said that, what was supposed to happen was I was supposed to finish it. And I was like, look, I've humbled myself. So give me the power to go ahead and get this shit done. 'Cause I'm tired of looking at it. Didn't happen. I ended up spending like quite a bit on just this one page. And it's because it's something I have to tell myself, this is actually important. I want this to actually be done right. I want this to actually be done in a way that actually helps people out. I want us to actually be worded in a way to where I've actually thought this all the way through. So I kind of just sat there and frustratingly just kept at it. And I worked on this one page probably for like an hour or two. I was pissed because I was like, first of all, I'm less than 10 pages to go. And you're telling me that for 2 hours, I'm going to spend it on this one stupid ass page. I am angry. However, though, like what I did kind of take away from that, just like mentally, when I got through with that, there was like a bit of a reprieve in the story where the two characters that were just fighting have a conversation. And I don't always see what I write all the time. Like whenever I'm in the mode and I'm writing, like I never really go back through it until it's time to do the edits. So I never like get to truly soak in what I just said. All I know for the moment is that I just felt something powerful whenever I'm writing, but I never exactly know how powerful it is, why it's so powerful, where it came from, why it's impacting me so much. I just know it just did. And so I was kind of going back through and it was like a reprieve of just like looking at these two talk. It's like I could see it, which was wild to me because I wrote it, you know? So it's just like, why is this impacting like me like this? I'm the one that wrote it. Why the fuck wouldn't I just be okay with whatever the fuck happened? But it just was so beautiful because the two characters the main character sees what it is that she's dealing with and why they were fighting. He notices she said something very powerful that really hit me, and he's about to kill her. And he's noticing she's not fighting though. She's no longer fighting. But he's too angry to even think about it until like he sees what she's dealing with. And then when they come back down, he asks like, why didn't you stop? Why didn't you keep fighting? Like we've been fighting this whole entire time. And she was just like, because I figured if I can't, because I was told I needed to kill you. And I realized I couldn't. So I need to kill you to end people's suffering. And she said, people suffering and mine is what she said, I think. And she's like, so I figured if I can't kill you, then at least I can die and end mine.
Whoa.
And I was like, good God, right? Like, what the fuck? And like, that was just like, sometimes I write these things when I'm really in the moment. And a lot of times I've noticed with the book, I'm sometimes like going through mentally what some of the people are going through. It's just done in a different story. And I've noticed that. Yeah. And to her to say that, I'm like, damn, like where the hell was I at in my life when that kind of came up? And then like she asked him like, why didn't you kill me? And he was like, because I saw what you're dealing with. And I realized you're not you're not my enemy. And it was just a very powerful moment, like where I got to kind of, it almost felt like seeing these two friends, these two people that like could not stand each other, really, you know, start to create a relationship that's going to be more powerful going forward. And to kind of just like have that reprieve of, it's like seeing it, like being a parent watching my two kids finally get along. Like no other way to put that other than that. And so I sat there and read that. It's always hard to read those things when I'm writing because I know I still got to edit, and I'm just like, well, is this really needed to be able to say this? Like, you know, is this kind of cutting off the momentum? But before I kind of go through and do that, like I'll usually kind of like just let the conversation just kind of like soak me in. And I'm not gonna lie to you, like I took that time on the big buildup of like them fighting to when it kind of comes to that head, and it just gave me just this crazy relief. I ended up finishing up a little bit more stuff than I expected. And B, like, nothing else to say other than like, I am super fucking close to finishing this thing. I'm seeing the way it's ending. And I think one of the things I'm having to remind myself that's really having to be kind of beat into me is it's okay that I'm not telling everything yet. There's still more to come. Because I usually get scared that if I don't do everything right away, which is what I was talking about with you earlier with this girl, like if I don't do it all right away, then that's it. It's a wrap. No one cares. It's over. I fucked up my shot. And I like had this kind of like moment where I actually told myself with my own words, like, it's okay that it's ending like this because I know what's coming next. Mm-hmm. And it's about to be crazy. So, it was a really kind of like, I'm proud of myself for doing things differently right now moment. So that was kind of like what my mental was this week. And I'm really excited to go ahead and like to finish it, but finish it right. Mm. So, yeah.
God, that perfectly summarized what you said, to finish it and finish it right. Because I so appreciate the awareness and the time that you took to pause and be like, I really want to crush this, and I'm going to be slow and intentional as I crush it. It's almost like two different energies. Like you're ready to wrap it up. This is a wrap. This is the end. You're kind of just trudging through. It's edits. And you want to be really present and soak it in and savor it and have it be the best that it can be. It's hard to utilize both of those energies at the same time.
And when I'm utilizing them both just as strong, what I realize is that it does this thing, even when my hands look, where there's balance.
Wow.
And so that's what, like, as you were saying that, I saw the picture in my head. I was like, oh, I'm doing this thing in a balanced way now.
Wow.
That's new. Pretty excited about that.
And it's cool how that can reverberate through the words and through the book and through the people that read it. Like that energy, which it sounds like was a big part of why you were so intentional about it, is rippling, and people will feel that.
Yeah, and that's what I was hoping that, like, in the words in the story, it would be seen, like, because even the main character had gone through those two extremes. And now he's starting to come back into balance and seeing things in a bigger perspective, and is going like, nah, this is something that even you can't even understand and see. And I got two different perspectives. That's why I liked the second book so much, was because like he lost his memories from the first one. But what he ended up getting in this second one is this opportunity to kind of, see what it is that like regular people are dealing with, as opposed to like his own, as opposed to just seeing his own purpose and what is to come. He's able to see how this particular enemy is going to be affecting so many regular people, because he is one of them now, because he doesn't remember any of that stuff. So so like there's this balance of caring about people and caring about the bigger picture, which is in a lot of ways where I've ran into people who they only think one way or the other. Mm-hmm. So it was really kind of cool to have this balance and to feel it and see it. So yeah.
Wow.
That was me. What about you?
Well, I will say I'm a little still in your story, and I don't want to give you any added pressure when I say this, is why I was pausing, but I think it's cool that it seems like with 10 pages left, you may culminate those edits around the end of the year.
Yeah, I was thinking about that
cool.
too. Yeah,
like it's cool, but I didn't want to put any pressure on you, so I was thinking about that too.
I was thinking about that too. I was like,
yeah.
Damn, this might be able to get it. This might look like that by that time. So how cool would that be?
Yeah. So I have an interesting journey. It happened today.
Oh shit! Nice.
A whole freaking thing happened today, and I'm pumped to talk about it. So I go to the dog park with my dogs, my new happy place, and I am leaving, and I go and I grab their leashes, and there's just right by their leashes is where my keys go, and my keys aren't there. And I'm just looking at the leashes and where my keys are supposed to go, and there's still no keys, but I keep looking, and I'm like, oh my God, I locked my keys in my car. Oh my God. So I immediately go into fight or flight, as one does, my body's evolutionary reaction to danger. And I said, I know exactly what this is. I've been studying it dedicatedly and speaking about it like every single day this is my life, right? Okay, I feel this. And so I went to my car to check out the situation. And sure enough, every door was locked. And there was my jacket inside, which I remembered I'd taken off because it was so hot today that has my keys in it. And I just tossed it in the car and moved on with my life. So I'm like, okay, sure enough, every door is locked. There are the keys. And I did this weird thing where I then, instead of totally spiraling, said, what are my options?
Ooh.
I said, let's stay up here cerebrally. Let's stay accessing that prefrontal cortex that I know that gets shut off in fight or flight. Let's stay with it. What are my options? And I just calmly, and inside I was going, go Lucy, fuck yeah Lucy. You stay calm in this situation and you do not self-flagellate. Okay, what are your options? Option 1, I can panic. It's an option, right? Option 2, I can somehow get my keys out of my car. That's usually AAA. I don't have a phone. Not really good. So that option isn't panning out. Option 4, I can walk my dogs home. I'm close enough. I can get my extra set of keys there.
Ooh.
And I can come back and I can get my car. This sounds like a really good option that seems like everything's going to be okay. How is this even possible? Because remember, my dogs are here too. So it's like added pressure, right, of being a mom. I'm like, I could do this, right? And so I just stayed with how that could work and how it was the best option. And then I just went over and I got my dogs. And I said, okay, guys, we're walking home, even though we just played for an hour and I know you're exhausted. And so we just started walking home, and it took us about an hour to walk home. And on the walk home, that was where the mental emotional work was. Old me and every single part of me that has been a perfectionist, that has been a people pleaser, that has experienced so much shame and guilt just internally around, self-critical, self-flagellating. I saw them all pop up like hedgehogs on that game where you pop whack-a-mole, right? And they kept popping up like, Lucy, how could you lock your keys in your car? Oh my gosh, what were you thinking? Why did you just do that? How could you just this is just awful. You're just the worst. That is a big spiral that in old me would have gone on for the entire hour. Yeah. It would have just been self-flagellating. How could you do this? You're the freaking worst. And the cool thing was when those thoughts started to come up, I said, okay, this is just my fight or flight. And what is it trying to do? Keep me from repeating the mistake. That's the only reason I would self-flagellate. Right? So I said, okay, now that I can see that, I don't need to do that.
And by that, you mean it would by beating yourself up, that's how you would
remember not to do that.
Yeah.
Okay. evolutionarily, when we would see a bear in the woods, our fight or flight would go really intensely, and then it would be so like intense that we would remember that there was a bear in that woods.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, you're trying to teach me there is a bear in the woods of locking my keys in the car.
Yeah.
And I said, I'm going to skip all the self-flagellation. I'm just going to say I've learned the lesson, and I'm going to take it one next step. And if I do it again, we'll all still live. We lived this time, right?
My God. I mean, like, yeah.
Right. So I'm sitting there. I'm seeing bears. I'm seeing it, right? It's all happening, and I'm seeing it. And then there was the big part of me that is so there was that side that's kind of like, don't make a mistake, and here's why. And then there was the part of me that's really people pleasing. I had a meeting I was leading during this time that I knew I was actively missing. So I'm sitting there walking the dogs and seeing all those old things inside me that want to go, all these people are mad at you. You're late. How could you? You're irresponsible. You're the worst. Everyone hates you, right? And so I just said, okay, there is nothing I can do right now. Lucy, did you try your best? Yes. Lucy, will everyone forgive you? And then I would start spiraling and be like, okay, wait, I'm thinking about other people. Let me get it back on myself. Do you forgive yourself, Lucy? Yes. If other people don't forgive you, is that their problem? Yes. Did you do your best? And I just kept bringing it back. And I was like, okay, now we've dealt with the perfectionist. Now we've dealt with the people pleasing. Those are really old patterns. I'm so proud that I didn't get stuck in them, because I'm just sitting here on this hour-long walk, right? Just with all that opportunity to do that. Like, I'm live living my mistake for an hour. Me and the dogs are having to walk this walk.
And not having to, like, what's the word? When, like, you have to thinking about what you could have done retroactively. You're actively changing it in the moment.
Exactly. Exactly. And so then I said, okay, I still have like 45 minutes left of this walk. What are we going to do with it? And I was like, what if you just used it to shower yourself in love? And so I started thinking, sweet Lucy, that you're dealing with this. Sweet Lucy, that you want to be leading a meeting and this is what you're doing. Sweet Lucy, that your dogs have played for an hour and now they're walking in an hour. Like, these are reasons that I would have used to go further into a spiral and say the opposite of sweet Lucy, like, Lucy, you're the worst person who's ever lived.
Yeah.
But I could see that why would I double down on myself? Like, it's something I've done my whole life, but why, when I've made a mistake, would I then be mean to myself? Like, that's the moment to be nice to myself. And it's weird that and so many of us are trained to do the opposite, right? But I was just like, okay, what if I loved myself even more? What if I leave this scenario having more love for myself, more compassion for myself, more gentleness for myself? And I did that for the rest of the walk. I just envisioned myself being loved and being showered and loved and just really proud of myself. And I got back to the house and I got my spare keys and I went over and I got my car. And I thought, now that I was past the spirally part, my brain was going to these beautiful places. Thank God that I was close enough to walk home. Thank God that my dogs can walk home and that the weather was so nice. Thank God that my body is such that I can walk home. Thank God I had a spare set of keys at the house. Thank God there was a Lyft driver that could drive me back to my car because I didn't want to walk all the way back. And the coolest thing was when I got to that really high place, I remembered that the only reason that I was not super aware when I took off my jacket, because that's what I had been like trying not to beat myself up of, because that's really the one point I could hone in. Like, that's where I made the mistake, right? And yet through getting to such a beautiful high vibrational state, I remembered that the only reason I was in a weird place at that moment was because I had grabbed I keep a watch in the car so that if I don't have my phone a lot, but if I really need to know the time, I can know it. So I had grabbed the watch when I pulled the dogs out of the car to make sure we had an hour and a half at the dog park. But my watch said an hour later than that because of daylight savings time. So I went into a panic, fight or flight, getting the dogs out of the car and then just kind of like forgot what I was doing and was like, oh, it's hot, took off my jacket, moved on. But my mind was mentally like, is it 12? Oh my God, is it an hour later? later? Are we okay? Should we spend 15 minutes here? Should we spend an hour here? I guess we'll figure it out. Maybe it was daylight saving times. I don't know. Did I get the time really wrong today? Like, those are all the things that I was doing when I left the Keys. So it was so beautiful for me that by not spiraling, not living in that fight or flight and going to this higher vibrational place, after a while, my thoughts even got to a place where I realized and could have huge amounts of compassion for myself. It was almost like I acted as if I had compassion for myself, which got me to a high vibrational place that allowed me to have the thought that showed me why I should have so much compassion for myself. I never really made a mistake. I was in a normal fight or flight place based on what I had realized about the time, and then did something weird. But it wasn't like I had just lost my brain for a second.
Yeah. Like that, isn't that the cool, like, I don't know, like how cool is that like you're at a place that you can, I can only think of the word troubleshoot it back to like, where the freak, like where did I go wrong? Oh, it was just that moment. And all of a sudden, like everything, like it's just crazy how something as simple as that can build to be the entire world is falling down.
Oh, 100%.
And like for you to be able to troubleshoot it all the way back to that and go like, oh, that's what was going on. And it's just such a beautiful human moment, because in that moment, I'm just like, yeah, who the hell wouldn't think that? Are you shitting me? And like once I'm able to say that and be like, yo, man, how much you lock your keys in your car? You know what? I took my jacket off. I completely forgot this and that. Oh, shit. Yeah, I be doing that all the time. Like, and so like, it's just like context. Like I've always thought, like, just you got the context of like, where the fuck did this come from? Shit. Oh, I get it. Chill out. That's all that was. And that's not even something to like beat myself up over. It'd be like, right. Yeah, I made a fucking, like, of course. Look at where I was. God, that's so beautiful, Luce. Sorry, it's very exciting.
No, thank you. I'm glad that you feel excitement. I mean, this was a huge moment for me. As I was doing it, I was like, I am shedding old, outdated beliefs. I am shedding old, outdated thought patterns. And I remember also, like 10 minutes into my walk through Dorothea Dix, because I love Dorothea Dix and I've brought the dogs there so many times and walked through so much of it. And when we were walking through it this different way I'd never been, because we were coming from the dog park, which wasn't usual, I remember thinking, like I was trying to have all these, I really was consciously bringing in high vibrational thoughts. And one of the things I said was, I wonder if I'll find like a penny or a feather or a rock. You know how I always look for these confirmations that I like really am on. This was the highest path. This was the, I'm supported, I'm loved. Like those are just some of my agreements that I have with my higher power. And when, I was walking and had forgotten about that. So it was like 15 minutes later. And I saw this piece of concrete and it had words on it. And they were the opposite way. So like I couldn't see what it said, but I just knew. I was like, I'm going to go read that.
Yeah.
And it said something. And this brings something I did with you in. So I went over to this concrete and I looked at the words right side up. And it said, my favorite thing ever that I've only seen one other place in Raleigh that I took you to. I loved it so much. It has 2 feet and it says, stand here and daydream. And the other one is in, it's just in a park and it was very casual. And maybe I think I showed, I don't know. Now you're looking at me and I'm like, shit, did I show Ryan? But I really think that I did show you one day. So it's in the Central Park in Raleigh, that I can never remember the name of, where it has the fallen firefighter. Anyway, there's this place in the park at the edge of it that has 2 feet and it says stand here and daydream. And for the 9 years that I've lived in Raleigh, I have loved going there, and I stop there and I will daydream. I will do it. It's in the middle of Raleigh and I love it. And I never knew there was another one. And so bringing it back, I'm just walking along and I see that and I was like, this is the biggest sign I could have ever asked for. So I went up on there and I put my feet on there and I stood there and I daydreamed. And what did I daydream about? Loving myself. I was like, I'm standing here daydreaming. I'm loving myself. I'm loving myself. I am not going to self-flagellate. It's okay. I made a mistake and I am living that out. I'm not perfect. I make mistakes and I love myself anyway. And it was a beautiful fucking moment.
What an amazing transformation.
Thanks, man. It was a big day.
What just the growth. Holy shit, Luce. Who are you? I like it. I'm a fan.
So, okay, this kind of brings us to topic time. And it's cool because I had come to this topic before this happened today. And I feel like this consecrates it. But my topic is that my question to you, basically, I have been experiencing a lot of things where I'm thinking, okay. That was just a lot of words that didn't say anything. Let me not try to like piece it together and let me just flow from the heart. Okay.
I'll let you know enough to be like, all right, well.
She'll get there. Okay. There is a wonderful Seinfeld I love where Jerry says something so wise. I've highlighted here before and I love so much. If what you're doing isn't working, then it makes sense to do the opposite.
Yes.
Just the 100% opposite.
Yes.
And I thought about this the other day because I have driven out of my neighborhood as many times as I've driven out of it. And at the end of it, on one side, there, if you have a low car, it's very easy to like curb it. Or whatever that's called, like where
you get ready to turn, and it's just like you'll hear your bumper hit the ground. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and it's set up to do that. I mean, it's like has a low curb, I guess, and then a high street. And I have a Prius, so I get out there, and I was told after like a year of this, someone told me cut your wheels, and yay, and that helps so much. But for a while now, it's just still made this awful grating sound, and I even noticed on the front of my car it came through a little bit, like not even on the bottom, but it's on like the edge of the left like front lip almost. Like it actually caught the car. So I'm like, okay, we got to do something here. So the next time I left my neighborhood, I cut my wheels and dipped. So I was already cutting my wheels, that was the thing, but I dipped my car way to the left to try to like swing it out. I'd been doing it a little to the left and it was still making this grating sound. So I thought, okay, let's swing it all the way to the left. Well, that made a horrible grating sound. But the beautiful thing about that was that at that moment I decided, well, the next time I leave this neighborhood, I'm going to go all the way to the right. And I went all the way to the right. And when you know, it resolved the whole thing. And now there's no more grating.
Oh.
But by me going only a little bit to the left before thinking that was right, I was getting, it was just perpetuating. Mm-hmm. And thankfully I was like, let me swing my pendulum. Let's go all the way to the left. That horribly did not work, so much so that I know to go all the way to the right. And it was a cool mini metaphor of like, doing that in life. And so I have been excited to now do that in a new phase of my life. Like the moment that happened, it hit my brain. I was like, cool, I'm doing this with this. And so I'm going to explain what I'm doing it with. And then my question for you, is there anything that you feel like you could do it with or are doing it with? Just,
okay.
So I am 100% starting at that moment, which was last week, doing everything the complete opposite as far as me living at the beach.
Okay.
And what that means is all the things that I've done for many months now, I'm just not doing at all. I am doing nothing for the first time. That means I am not actively listing I'm not actively promoting or pushing anything to happen or seeking. I'm not even actively praying. I'm not even actively surrendering. I'm not even actively daydreaming. Like all the many steps that I've shared some on here that have been my stages. I thought, well, what's the only thing I haven't done, right? What swings it all the way to the other side? To do literally nothing. Mm. And so it's only been a week, but it's been, and I'm not saying I have any results that I'm sharing. All I know is that it feels different and it feels really good. And I also appreciate that I did do so many somethings that it's making it like obvious and almost logical for me to do nothing now. Like I've exhausted, like I feel, it feels like the natural next step. It's the only thing I haven't done.
Wow.
And so I'm doing it and it feels good. And I've seen it with the car. I've seen it with what happened today, right? I do remember when it happened. One thought I had was, well, I know exactly what it feels like to now sit here and self-flagellate and fight and flight and make this be an awful rest and just ruin my day. I know what that feels like. And so let me just try the opposite. It was a baby thought, but I did come through, and I really want to implement that in more things. And I'm wondering if it sparks anything in you.
Doing the opposite. I think I shared last week that I was doing the opposite with the girl by not texting or calling, even though every inch of my fiber said to do it, up until as early as late as last night, which is fucking stupid. I'm trying to think of something else that I'm doing that's the complete opposite, though. I had an interesting moment last night as I was driving back from work where I found myself trying to help somebody and guide somebody in a way that I wasn't guided, but helped me out. So this was with the girl that we had met, talked about doing intern stuff with us. I haven't really talked to her about that since. I'm just like, all right, I'm not even going to press that. But she texted me yesterday and was like, Ryan, like, I got a question. Like, can I, I'm getting ready to like apply for like this internship with the track and field team. And like, I was wondering if you had any tips. So I was like, all right, I don't know what the hell she's talking about. Let me like, I was like, yo, let me call you back when I get out of my game. So I call her and she was just like, so I asked her, I was like, now as far as tips, like, what are you looking for? Like, what do you mean tips? Usually, because I know she was asking me because I work in sports, I wanted to go do this, look at this, try this, make sure you use this stuff. That's just what I was taught. You know what I'm saying? Like, and it would make me feel better because I can sit back and be like, bro, like I know some shit. Watch what I'm about to pass on to you. But I remembered that made me feel overwhelmed.
Whoa.
So let me more so try to get clarity on what the hell she's talking about.
Wow.
So I was like, well, what do you mean like tips? She's like, I know, like you work in this. Like I was like, any kind of tips, like when I go and talk to them. And I was asking her, and I asked her, I said, what is it that you don't know that you think that I know? And she was like, I think that question like threw her off. That question threw me the fuck off. I was like, where the fuck did that come from? And she was just like, I don't know. That's why I'm asking you. And I was like, well, that was a rhetorical question. I was telling her, I said, you actually have everything you already need.
Wow.
So I was telling her the tip I am going to give you if you're going to work in sports is go in there with an open mind. You are never going to be filming the same game over and over. Might be the same sport, but it will never be the same game. Something will always be different. And if you can learn to be open and not be rigid in what you think something should be, then that's going to help you. That's not advice I don't think she was expecting. That wasn't tips that I was expecting to give because I was going through my head trying to figure that shit out. But I remembered I'm going to give the opposite of what it felt like I hadn't been getting, because me being in this has made me realize that's the shit I really fucking needed. Like that's really the secret sauce there. And so we ended up having like just this interesting conversation. And one of the things I started realizing as I was talking to her is I was like, I can give you all these different techniques, different things to do, yada, yada. And I was telling her a few things like, yo, like, I know that their track team is good. Like, make sure that their stuff is intense. You do this, you do that. But as we kept talking, like, I started realizing, like, none of that shit's going to work. So what I ended up telling her is, all right, here's going to be my tip for real when you go in there to go talk to them. You find a way to pause, whatever way it takes, and actually listen to what it is that they need. This is what is going to help. The opposite of any advice that I think I've ever been given.
This is amazing.
I said, you're not going to be, I said, you got to remember, you've already got all the skills necessary. And I said, if you go in there and you feel overwhelmed, you got people you can talk to. So you ain't alone in this shit. And then I told her, I said, and another thing I want you to think about, another tip. I was like, I want you to ask yourself, what all can you realistically handle? And I was just like, because you're in school still and you have other things you're doing. You have a life. Sometimes with these things, people will try to do too much to where you're completely inundated with it. So what can you realistically do? And she was like, dang, like I won't.
These are powerful words. I'm like taking notes over here. Wow.
And she was like, dang, that's a good question. So I was like, so she was like, well, on the thing, it only says like they only need a photographer and videographer to like, for like twice a week at practice and like for their meets and stuff like that. So she was like, so it don't seem that bad. I said, that's what they're requiring for you to film. I said, but however, you also edit this stuff and you know how long it takes to edit. And she was like, dang, you're right. Like that does take a lot. I said, so yeah, all of a sudden these 3 days become 5 to 6 day weeks when you're working 5-6 hours a day. So ask yourself, what realistically can you do? And then I was just like, and then here is another thing that I'm going to say when you go in there. Ask them if it's okay. Once you kind of realize what you can realistically do, I was like, I would never tell someone to do photography and videography. That's someone who doesn't understand what this takes. I would ask them to do one or the other.
Damn. And it like sounds knowledgeable. I'm just loving this. Like, I understand this field so much that I'm asking.
It would be, I was like, it's unfair to expect someone to do both of that, like without being paid, which is bananas. And so I was just like, so ask them, like, is it okay if I do this? Is it okay if we do this? Is it okay if we have this and stuff like that? And I said, and whenever you're listening to them speak, like make sure that you ask questions if a question kind of comes up. And I was just like, and I said, if you're scared to ask a question, you ask God for courage to ask you this question.
This is the most beautiful pep talk I've ever heard. Oh my God. Yes.
And she was just like,
damn.
And so she was just like, yo, like shit. And I was just like, yo, like straight up. So like, this is what it kind of is. And these are the tips. And I said, and she was like, well, is there like any questions I should ask? And I said, I'm going to be honest with you. I don't fucking know. You got to trust your instincts on this because you're going to be in that interview and not me. So I could try to prepare you for something that might not ever happen. So this is why I'm saying you need to really pay attention and listen and ask for courage to ask a question so that you won't get overwhelmed by this. And I was telling her one of the things in school, because I went to A&T too, one of the things that was a very powerful thing that one of my teachers did, one of my theater teachers that I loved to death, that actually inspired me to do what I do now, is one time during class, he actually, instead of like doing all the different techniques and stuff like that to be able to get stuff done, he had us look over a contract. And he was just like, because he worked in the industry, and he was like, this stuff we do, we can do it. But I want you to actually see this. We're going to read through this, and I want you to actually see how this kind of works out. And I read it, and we read it, and I was like, oh, this seems like kind of messed up here, and this and this and this. And he was just like, exactly. So I want you to know what you're looking for when you get into this stuff.
Wow.
And so it's so interesting how, like, by the time we got through, it's like one of the things she told me at the end was just like, Ryan, like, I'm just like really kind of like nervous and scared. And I was like, yeah, it's okay to be nervous because you actually care about this shit. It's cool. And so I was just like, but the tips I'm going to give you now, I'm not going to try to make you look good when you go in there and try to make all these different things, give you the words to sound good. I'm going to give this shit so you can go in there and actually feel confident about yourself, that you can actually handle this shit yourself. And it was just very interesting. And I said, and once you get it, then we'll go on to the next step after that. That was the opposite of what I got, of what I felt like she was asking me for, even what I thought I would originally say. However, like, what I did know and trust, kind of like what you were saying with your story, is that was the secret sauce that I got out of my experiences. So I'm going to trust those more than any kind of knowledge I ever have. And I want someone to more so trust their experiences. And I was telling her, yo, you're dope already. So you know how to do this stuff. So even if you are overwhelmed, you'll figure it out. I was like, the work is the easy part for us. And that felt like the complete opposite of what I've been taught, what I would think, what anyone else would say. Even like, I was telling my dad that, and he was like, I don't think he could even like comprehend what I was like saying to her. And kind of walked out of there feeling like all of this is, I'm doing the opposite here too, by actually not copying what someone else told me and trusting my experiences. I actually sat down and listened and heard and tried to figure out what it is that they need, what it is that she needed, and how powerful. Like, it was just a very powerful moment, because out of everything I've kind of like been through and seen or been a part of, like, that was the real stuff. And what I'm hoping comes out of that specifically for me is this ability to, maybe that comes back to help me out later on down the line, because I know I can get kind of like caught up in, I was really caught up in gathering accolades and gathering equipment and gathering these things and gathering the right words to say. And that's just not me anymore. And I'm really doing the opposite now. I'm pausing, paying attention, and responding to whatever the fuck is thrown in front of me. And it's very uncomfortable because I don't know what's gonna happen. But I'm a big opposite of me is I'm just trusting that I'm gonna respond healthily and better for myself. So that's kind of where my mind went with it.
I love that story came out. I'm like, oh my gosh, that's so, it's everything. I mean, that's so beautiful. The power of, you were in awareness in that moment. You did talk about it, but I'm just curious, what was the exact moment? Like, what were your thoughts? What were your feelings when you felt, like, did you feel the old energy? Were you about to say it and then you paused? Like, what? I know you did kind of talk about it, but like in that moment.
Luckily I had enough time to pause at work, because I was going through like my mind of just like, what is it that like I need to do to, cause like at this point in time, like she's asking me for help, yada, yada, yada.
And so you start like Rolodexing the auto answers you would give. And then and then what?
And then I don't know what it was, but one thing I did different was, usually in those moments I would call you right as I'm walking out. And instead I was like, let me get to my car and sit down and relax first.
Whoa.
Opposite of what I normally do.
Whoa, look where it's seeing. Oh my God.
And I said, all right, we're going to stop. I'm going to allow my mind to kind of like get a little bit disconnected from what the freak just happened in there, so that I can fully hear her. And then honestly, like, I think the moment that like I felt different was when I did do that. I'll say it was right when I was pulling out to get ready to leave. I was pulling out of the parking lot. And as I had asked her, like, all right, so what tips are you like? What's going on? What tips are you looking for? What are you looking at? What are you thinking about? I will say, like, I think it was that moment that like I asked instead of assumed. Like, yo, I'm just like, usually I've been waiting for validation my entire life. So for someone to ask me knowing that I work in this stuff is like the moment that I'm waiting for.
And yet,
like, I realized, like, just everyone's story, everything is different. Like, you know, there might be some things that will come back that will help going on. But I will say, like, that felt that old energy go away when I asked, what tips are you looking for that I can give you that you don't already know? Like, that was me humbling myself, me trying to pump her up, and me not using like, oh, I've got this status that someone actually wants to listen to me. When I felt myself say and ask that, I felt that I was in a much more calmer state of, I don't know anything. I don't know. So let me try to figure that out. That I can say, like, it was when I'll go back though. Probably the moment, like, what's your question? Probably the moment was when I didn't call on my way.
That really set the whole tone.
Yeah. And instead I waited, got to my car, sat down, turned it on, looked at cars go by, took a deep breath, and then called. Wow. That's where I think it was different for me.
It's cool.
So
it's so cool because that's where the miracles are. I mean, it's in the inner work. It's in the moment of choosing different. It's in the moment of choosing better, choosing new, choosing something that serves you now and shedding what used to serve you. I mean, that's where the work is. That's where the miracles are. That's where the beauty is. That's where the pain is. Yeah. That's where like all of it is in that one moment.
But it's wild how like that moment, it was, what helped shift it was the way to which I go into it, as opposed to like just the moment itself. Like, the way to which I normally go into that is, I got to get this done right now. Right. And my moment this time that shifted was, let me get down, sit down first. Let me kind of get let me actually relax myself. I'm just coming out of something pretty intense. And me doing opposite things leading up to the conversation, where I think I'm very, grateful that I've been aware of myself to actually like know like what it is that I actually do. I'm very grateful of the work I've been doing that, like, says like I'm a very rushed person. So I'm always, I think I have told myself, and I think that I think better when I'm walking, when I'm moving. And what I have noticed is that that's not the truth. What it is that I realize I actually speak more from my head when I do that. I actually talk faster when I do that, which is me not always speaking from my heart. And that's taken me a really long time to kind of get to that point, to really be like, all right, when I really need to sit down and have this like really legit conversation, I am going to sit down and calm.
You know what you just reminded me of? Your story of what you did with the book. It's like something where you want to go into it and you want to crush it and you want to get it done. And then even having all those feelings, you bring in the softness and the slowness and the awareness, and you ground it, the balance.
The balance. Yeah. But golly, it's not as, it's not uncomfortable. It is very, yesterday I described me going out with that girl last week. I said it feels like it felt like I felt like a deep breath and my pores were open. And I was like, and she was like, oh my God. My friend was like, oh my God, that's so poetic. And I was like, well, I didn't mean it to be. But like straight up, like, but that's the feeling I'm going for with everything in my life. Like when I did that last night, it felt like a deep breath and my pores were open. And that was very calming and warm. So
I like this visualization of pores being open. I've never thought of that, and I'm having so much fun doing that right now. I'm like flexing my nose. I'm realizing open pores, open. I love it. I love it. Well, that was epic. Gonna close this out. Higher power. Grant us the serenity to accept the things we cannot change, the courage to change the things we can, and the wisdom to know the difference.
Boom.
Peace
See you
out.
next week.